If you want to use the bathroom, what do they do? Oh, they do this. Now, if I stand, I'm in a supermarket and I've just finished the shopping, and I stand next to the checkout chick, you're not meant to say that, the person working the till, yeah, and I do this, how's she going to feel? Excited? Pretty uncomfortable, eh? In Australia, for leading the bathroom, restroom, toilet, we do this. If I stand next to the person who's just sold me my groceries doing this, how's she going to feel? Time out? Yeah, she's thinking, I need that, yeah. Signing doesn't necessarily work outside of the family that is used to signing. Pictures are pretty good. If you show somebody a picture of the restroom, oh, know what you need, mate, it's that way. They might get on, they might understand that, is that right? So pictures can be pretty useful. This is, I'm getting to iPods, you know that, don't you? Anybody use Proloquo Go? Here? Yeah, oh, I'm so excited with the software. Proloquo Go. I'm going to show you a short movie. I don't know, I'm probably running out of time. I wanted to show you the short movie because I want you to see the kids using it. And kids who are non-verbal, I don't like the expression, I don't know any non-verbal people. They all grunt and groan and make noises, but anyway, it just means people who don't use verbal, don't use language. Using software that you can type or touch a picture that gets converted to speech, and that actually becomes a sentence, you can then communicate. If I stand in a supermarket with a device that will talk, the person next to me will actually, it's the same currency of exchange. So they will know what I'm on about. And I'm much more likely to be understood, much more likely I get my point across. This is going to lower frustration. It's going to mean I can join in with things that I need to. So I'm very excited about this software. There are less complicated softwares. Grace app, which is also made in Australia, but they just don't do as much stuff as Proloquo Go. You can buy it from iTunes. It's not that expensive. You can upload it onto an iPod Touch or iPads, and I think it's very useful. Anyway, mustn't fall off the edge. Uses IT. Computers are enabling for so many of us. They cross the borders between us and actually can help build the kind of connections that I'm not building intuitively. So it means I'm able to get my needs met, I'm able to therefore use less aggression, cause less problems at home. The environment is highly changeable. Even ones that we think of as being static, all the same. What happens when you go into a supermarket and they've changed all the aisles around again? Isn't that annoying? Yes. Who throws themselves on the floor and bangs your head on the ground and has a meltdown? Close. Yeah, you only went in there for a tin of soup, you know, and they've moved it all. Yeah. So frustrating. Oh dear, so you never go to that place again. It's very difficult, but at least you guys have an understanding of why, and that will be missing in the field of autism unless someone has taken the trouble to build those connections to help me understand. Building up connected information and accessing it after storage is what you're able to do real well. And you know to model other people's behaviour, which is vital if you're going to actually marry your experience with theirs so that you can share. These are all things that are very, very difficult, a real big ask in autism, and yet people expect it. They see it somehow as just the norm. It's the norm for you if you're typically developing. So I want to learn, but I need you to show me how. How do I understand things like successful turn taking? By being told it's not your turn. But if I've pushed the other person away, and I'm now at the station, it obviously is my turn, and that just means this happened to me when I went back to school at the age of 38, and I'd never used a computer before, but I very quickly became quite attached, and that just means really interested and wanting to use the computer. And we had to put our name down in the book, and we had to stand in this space and wait for the person who was working at the computer to get up and move away. So to hurry things up, I pushed the person that was in front of me and stood on the line that you were supposed to stand. So when they said it's not your turn, Wendy, they were wrong. Because I was standing where you stand when it is your turn. So which bit of this process was I missing? You can push them, I did.
It still won't end up being your turn.
Yeah, see, it's the process of how you got there that I've missed. And it's true though, people all the time use that kind of terminology. You cannot do that, but I am doing it. So what you mean is, Wendy, that's not allowed. What is allowed is, and you need to demonstrate or go through the process so that I know what's expected. I'll miss those bits. I'm observing and I'm watching, but I'm not getting the whole picture. Concepts of a common goal. Group activity implies shared interest. Now, groups are families, are kids at school. Everywhere you go, there's group stuff happening, and that's an awful lot of activation going on in a whole heap of senses that aren't making a lot of sense to me. Group activity implies shared interest and the ability to divide one's attention. What if I don't have this generalised concept, as in the concept of what's supposed to happen in that group at that time? Do you know that sometimes Grandad turns up on a Sunday and expects to stay for lunch? Did you know? And he hasn't been invited. Did you know this? And do you know you should thump Grandad and tell him to go away until he gets an invitation? I can remember thinking this kind of stuff as an autistic child. Whereas everybody else knew Grandad doesn't need an invitation. He's part of the family. He's not, he doesn't live here. He's still part of the family, Wendy, even though he lives somewhere else. How do I know that? I won't know that kind of stuff. Some of our behaviour is simply a result of that confusion, not understanding. It's all out of context. It's not what I normally do, and so on. What if groups are a nightmare for me? I have places where I get lost, telling me to share, wait, be thoughtful. That's an interesting one. This is Wendy being thoughtful. People say that stuff all the time. If you don't get it right, they say, think, Wendy. They don't tell you what to think, just to think. See how much of the information's missing? That's no good for me as an autistic person. I need more, not overwhelmed. They don't convey meaning to me. Concepts. Do I understand the concept? And this is the question you need to ask yourself. If somebody, do they understand the difference between pretend, imaginary, fantasy, reality? And you can't go in, well, you can try going into explaining different things, but if we don't have the basic stuff, I'm going to miss the bits to put it together. If the medium you're using is not one I relate to, it's not going to work for me.